I'm black, and I'm a Republican. And can you hear me now?
Yes,
I
sir,
can
we're
hear you,
listening.
sir. Yes.
I'm a Republican, yes, ever since in the late 70s. But at any rate, the Black Caucus, who is controlled by, and those are on committee assignments, say that they are in a part, like she's a part of the budget committee, and talking about budget. I have found that our main problem, especially among blacks, is willing to, I'll say, be what we naturally are, conservative. That means we have always had problems regarding not spending more than what we earn and not consistently taking handouts. That means we have got to become more productive and less what we call dependent upon just being consumers. We have not made the progress that we should make, and we're not heading in the right direction with the approach that the Black Caucus members have right now.
Yes, sir. Let's leave it there and let's get a response from Congresswoman Moore.
Well, thank you for calling. And, it doesn't surprise me that, as an octogenarian, congratulations for living this long as a black person in America, that you are a Republican. My grandparents, for whom I'm named, were Republicans until the day that they died, because this was the party of Lincoln. This is not your same old party of Lincoln that we're dealing with right now. Black people really did enjoy a lot more opportunity, I think, at a certain period of time, but you cannot deny that there is an imperative for us to avail ourselves of some social service advantages. I mean, we have not inherited property, for example, to the same extent that whites have. There is a legacy of discrimination in allowing us to have educational opportunity. I mean, right now, African Americans, some of our best and brightest students who need a Pell Grant, need an opportunity to go to college because their parents don't have trust funds. Republicans are characterizing this as socialism, as welfare. Veterans, and I think we've seen Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC say this, a whole generation of white men went back to under the GI Bill, and we were proud to be able to do that. Now when African Americans need an opportunity, we want to call that socialism. We want to call that welfare. And I think there's a real double standard in terms of being self-sufficient to which African Americans are being held. Certainly, black people want to be entrepreneurs. But what happens when they bid constantly for contracts on the city level, to do electrical work or plumbing or whatever, and they're constantly outbid and outmaneuvered by white contractors? And there is some element of old boys club. We don't have to necessarily call it racism, but but there's an element of, the old boys are in there and you can't get in there. So I want you to appreciate the struggle that African Americans have, and I do think that it's important for African Americans to make themselves present in both parties. But I would hope that when African Americans are Republicans, that they hold the Republicans' feet to the fire with regard to equal opportunity.
Well, Mason brought up the CBC. Wanted to ask you about your relationship with Representative Allen West, who made some comments regarding the CBC recently.
Well, I can tell you that all CBC members are not the same. We're very diverse. And I think that we welcomed Allen West into the Congressional Black Caucus. We have a candidate, for example, who's a nominee, I believe from Utah, that says that they're going to come in and tear the CBC apart from inside out. Certainly, we value differences of opinions. We all represent different constituencies, regions of the country. But certainly, the Congressional Black Caucus, there are similarities and commonalities among African Americans that we want to coalesce around and not focus on those differences. And so to have a CBC member who just wants to focus on, representing false impressions of the African American community, or is joining for the purpose of tearing it apart, that's not a welcome advent.
Just a few minutes left with our guest, Representative Gwen Moore, Lynchburg, Virginia. Harrison, Democrat. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a retired electrical worker out of the electrical union.
Yes, sir, we're listening.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
sir,
sir.
We're listening.
I want to speak to Mrs. Moore and tell her that they don't need to take any cuts. They don't get a committee, independent people that's really smart and educated, to start a committee to investigate all the corruption that's in these programs that the government already has. If they take out all the fraud and the corruption and the problems with that fraud is the insurance companies and the Medicare system is so corrupt, they need to take the fraud and all the different.
Thank you, sir. I think we got the point. Representative?
He's absolutely right on point. But in order to do that, and that is why it's so frustrating, Peter, to see that some of our Republican colleagues, certainly this budget bill, sort of wants to take away personnel from the FBI, from the SEC, wants to destroy the Affordable Care called Obamacare, which focuses on hiring and putting together the infrastructure to make sure that we can rout out Medicare fraud. The only reason people get away with Medicare fraud, for example, is because there is not enough enforcement. And so he's absolutely right. We could garner many, many savings from reducing fraud.
What was your position when the Simpson-Bowles budget proposal came up?
There were many good things in the Simpson-Bowles proposal.
If you had to vote up or down on that?
Certainly Simpson-Bowles did not have these draconian cuts to some of the social safety net programs. Certainly Simpson-Bowles proposed that there be revenue increases. It wasn't a perfect document. I wasn't at the table to make certain proposals. And I think that as a document, there was some unreadiness on the part of, but I think it was an honest conversation about how to have a balanced approach.
If you had to vote up or down on that, no amendments, how would you have voted?
I probably would not have voted for it with no amendments, but I do think that it provided a framework where there are elements of it that could have been put to a vote. That's true of all huge packages like that you can disaggregate them and find common ground.
Scott in Woodbridge, Virginia.